Good morning and welcome to day 2 on my solo writing week retreat here at Postcard Cabins. Oh man, yesterday was a really great day. So I completed day 1 with a total of 9,000 words written, and then at least 9,000 words written on my actual manuscript, about 4,000 written on my plot, together 13,000 words total for the day. But that brings me to 10,400 words on my project total, which is great. I feel really good about that after day 1. I had hoped to be around 14,000 words, but you know what? I came into this retreat slightly underprepared, and that was just due to life circumstances plus coming off the holidays. I didn't have my plot fully ready, and so because of that, I had to do it here. Now, I can kind of go both ways on that. On one hand, I'm bummed because I feel like that was a little bit of time wasted, and yet, on the other hand, I haven't had a spare moment to be able to step away and just honestly think through what I wanted to do with this book. Like, there are ideas, like I see the end, I see stuff that happens in the middle. It's all there, but I didn't see how it was going to play out. And so, in taking my time to be able to, kind of methodically think through, okay, how do I form a plot in general? Because that is something I really love to do, is just think about the mechanics of plot. But then also, how does that work for each specific character? I mean, there's a ton of characters in this book. So there's a lot to balance. So I feel actually pretty good doing that all here. I have solidly got the first act plotted. Again, like I said, I've got pretty much what happens after that. It's just a matter of ordering it. Just a matter of ordering it appropriately. And I mean, if we want to talk a little bit about writing here, which I mean, gosh, this setting is pretty amazing, right? um, I will say that so what I love to do on any kind of retreat, or even when I'm at home and I'm stuck at a point, is I'll go out and I'll take a walk. So yesterday, we'll come back to that. Yesterday, woke up, had my coffee. Speaking of, nothing better than French press. But I had my coffee and pretty much hopped right into just finishing out writing what I had already plotted out, which was like maybe the first 4 chapters, something like that. And then taking a lot of time to really think through, okay, so what does this look like then after, right? And then my sweet husband came out. He brought me lunch, a little hamburger. It's delicious. And thankfully, the cabins are about like 20 minutes from our house, so it wasn't a long drive for him. And we just got to hang out for just a short amount of time. He knows like I'm here to focus and to get stuff written. So said goodbye to him, wrote more until maybe about 3, I think, 3 p.m. And since he had taken care of my lunch, like I didn't have to make anything, which was great. So I took myself out on a walk, and this is super, super important for me, is getting outside and getting away from the page, but then also being really intentional about it. Usually when I walk, I like to have a podcast going or an audiobook or even music. Sometimes the music can stay if it is on brand with my book because I have certain playlists. But a lot of the times I find that I just get distracted. I love listening to things. And so what I am lacking is a time of not having stuff going on, which again, this place is perfect for that. So took myself on a 1 mile, well, actually it ended up being 2 mile hike. So out and back, they have a really cool trail up here. Now we're snowed in. It's probably hard to see, but this is all snow back there. So definitely was going through at least like 4 or 5 inches of snow. Parts of the trail were like completely blazed by people before me. So that made it easy, but I was bound and determined to make it to the end of the trail. There were some hills. It is an easy trail, but the snow made it like 10 times as hard. So I was huffing and puffing, but it felt so good. So I was actually gone for about 50 minutes. And by the time I came back, I was ready to get back into it. I made some peppermint tea, had a little snack. I've got those like popcorn things that are like triangles, but they're sweet, very tasty. But anyways, So yeah, I did that, sat back down and just like cranked out another like, I think it was like 2 to 3,000 words, just because I was like so excited for the story. And then also after that time, that's when I finished the rest of the plot of the first act. So I feel like it was worth it. It was a good break. I do feel a little bit like I lost momentum. No, that's not the right way. I feel like I had less momentum than I would have hoped in starting the book. It's feeling a little clunky. And I think that's because it's the last book, right? So these are the last two characters because each book has features two characters. So the first book was two characters, Renner and Tally. Second book is featuring Leaf and Merritt, but Renner and Tally show up in that book. So there's four perspectives. And then this book has two main characters, plus Renner and Tally, plus Leaf and Merritt, maybe at least one, maybe two more points of view that are like very minimal. I still have to decide if I'm going to do that, but I think I am. So it's a lot, right? And at that very last character, she's the only one whose head I haven't been in. So that makes it challenging. Also helps you to know who the main character of this the last book is, at least on the guy side of it. But yeah, so I am bummed that it's been a little slower in writing the book. But I did notice coming, so I did notice after writing her and being like, I don't really know who she is because I'm still figuring her out. Then I switched to the perspective of the main male character who I have written previously. And I was like, got this. So that went way faster. And all of a sudden that kind of like hit me on this plane of like, go, go, go. Um, and then I reached a character who I have written previously in another book. And so I was like, oh, this is easy because I know who they are. So it was really fun. And I very much enjoyed that. So, all in all, huge success for day one. I mean, we're going to call it 1.5. I don't know, day one. And I'm here now heading into day two. I'm about to read my devotional, do my journaling, and then I'm hopping straight back into the story. Now, I was really specific in planning out that whole first act because I like to think of my writing in math, which is ironic because I'm the worst person at math ever and I really dislike math. But I do know my, would you call them metrics of a writer, like the type of writer that I am. And that comes from being a ghostwriter for 8 years. I spent a lot of time knowing, okay, if I need to write 10,000 words today, this is what I need to do, or this is how long it's going to take me, give or take. So taking all that information and moving it into this week, I look at this type of writing, my science fantasy, as very different than my ghostwriting because ghostwriting is set up in a way that you can just crank out a ton. So we're talking usually contemporary setting. If it's a mystery, I do plot things out. If it was a romance, I sometimes didn't plot because I was like, I got this. Sometimes I did too. It just depended on the story. I hope none of my clients are watching this now. But yeah, so for this though, so complex, 6+ character points of view, so many different things that I need to wrap up and places that I need to be and all of that. So it is just slower in the writing. And also this is going to sound bad, but I care a little bit more about it, right? I care about my prose being good. I care about my descriptions being vivid. But I also have to temper that with the knowledge that this week is about getting the most amount of words out as possible to get me as far as I can in this book. It is not my second read through where I add in more detail. It's not my end product. So I'm letting myself be a little lax. What I would love to do is go back and read what I wrote yesterday and add in stuff, but I'm not going to let myself do that. It will only disrupt the flow and it will only take more time that I don't need to waste on it. So instead, I will probably just read the scene before or even just like the last part of it. I forget whose point of view I was in. I might have stopped. No, I think I stopped at a clear break. So I will hop back in, just read a little bit previously of what I did, and then go for it and keep moving forward. So, like I said, plotting out that first act was really strategic because I think if I push really hard, I could get to the end of that. But I also have to temper that with the goal of having a good further portion of my plot done by the time I head back. So it's that give and take. Like, I want words down on the page, but I also want to be able to know where I'm going after. So if I only plot to the first act or through the first act, and then I only write through the first act and I go home, I still have a lot of work ahead of me. So I'm thinking that probably the end of tomorrow, the evening of tomorrow into the morning of Thursday, I'm going to try. I've been going to bed late. Like, it was probably 12:30 last night. So I'm like waking up a little later than I'd like. And I know for sure tomorrow night I'll want to stay up later than I should because I want to finish stuff. But I'm going to hope to try to get up a little early and maybe like get all my stuff pre-packed and then spend up until 11, which is checkout time, just hammering in on further steps in this plot. And honestly, what I'm probably going to have to do is write it in stages, which I don't love to do that. I love to like plot the whole thing all the way if I can. But at this point, it's more important that I feel confident in each stage and feel like things are flowing like they should. I tried to put in something yesterday that I was like, oh, this is happening here. And I was like, no, it's too early. That needs to happen in the second act. So things like that. And what I might end up doing is not put chapter titles to these things, because usually when I plot, I have an outline that I go through of the beats. I mean, it's not like the story structure, or what's it called? It's not like Save the Cat's beats. I'm sure that they are part of what I use, but I have like a hybrid of James Scott Bell's plot and structure, Susie May Warren's story equation. Who else? There's a couple of other people whose like plotting techniques I have studied, and then I have created my own like monster combination of this is how I plot. That maybe sounds really impressive, but honestly, it's the way that I like to approach stories so that I make sure that I'm hitting those highs and those lows and those like structures that you think that you need to have, structure that you want to have in your books. And then also I split up my second act into two, an A and B. So really I think of my story as like 4 parts. That first part, hitting that doorway of no return, which is where I would love to be by the time I leave here. And then moving into the first half of Act 2, which is always driving towards that midpoint, because that's like our highlight, right? That's where everything needs to switch. And that's what I need to be thinking of as early as this first act. Okay, I'm setting them up now. These things are happening, and I'm already going to kill somebody off. Oh, it's so sad, but it has to happen. Anyways, but then we're talking about like, once you hit that midpoint, then like everything has to happen that just like yanks you through to that third act where I want to ratchet up even more. So as someone who also loves to read thrillers, like early Baldacci, maybe mid Baldacci, not early, mid Baldacci, I love everything he did, because you would read it and all of a sudden you get to the end and your mind is just like, how? It started here. And now it's here. I love that. I want to do that with my science fantasy. I want to do that where you're just like not expecting what's going to happen. And you guys, the ending. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm pumped, clearly. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go write. And I'll be back for day 3 tomorrow and give you guys a little update. Peace. I don't say